So we start discussing with a concept called as, right? So JDBC, right? So JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity. JDBC stands for what? Java Database Connectivity. So what is this JDBC and all? How to use this? What actually this JDBC means, and how can we write the Java programs by using this JDBC to interact with what? With the what? Database softwares and all we try to understand today, right? So before moving on to interacting with how to write before moving on to writing a program to interact with the database softwares and all, first of all, let us try to understand why do I need to write a Java application to interact with what? Database software. What is the importance of writing a Java program which interacts with what? Database software. Why should I write a Java program to interact with what? Database software. So basically, whenever you talk about any application, right? So any application, right? So anywhere, the data is the key, right? So whatever the program, whatever you do, right, in computers, the data is the key. If you want to generate library management system, hotel management system, student management system, everywhere, if you want to do some kind of operations, arithmetic operations, anything you want to do, any logic you want to implement, for each and every logic, the data is the central. Without data, there is no meaning of what? Without data, you cannot write the applications and all. So data is the heart. So generally, so the data can be taken from different sources. Then after taking the data, reading the data from different sources, so you'll be applying some kind of logic on this data. That means you you'll be writing the data processing logic and all. So after process this data, then you come up with the results. Again, new data will become results means what? Again, you will come up with end up with a new data, right? Then that is done here, right? But whenever we talk about the data here, so whatever the data you are going to take here, let's suppose I'm going to take the data from an end user, right? So I'm going to process this data by writing some kind of application logic. Then after processing this data, I'm going to come up with some new data, nothing but results. After processing the data here, I'm going to come up with some kind of results, right? So this is everywhere you have a data, and this is where you have your programming and all to take the data and operate the data and generate the new data, right, based on the inputs given by the users or something here. But here, when we talk about this data, now whatever the data I am generating after processing this, whatever the data I am coming up with this, so it needs to be referred later. It needs to be referred later. So I must be use this data after some later point of time, right? Everywhere you take any system, any application you take, this is a common thing, right? So let's suppose you'll be storing your data in your hard disk. What is the purpose of storing the data in your hard disk? It's not one-time usage. If you want to use the data, right? If you want to use the data repeatedly, whenever you are collecting the data, after collecting the data, if you want to use this data after some time, then you need a permanent mechanism to store your data. It's not only related to programming, right? So whenever you are trying to store any data, any type of data, a file, a simple file, or a audio song or video song, you'll be storing into your hard disk for permanently. Then you can access this data whenever you require, right? So generally, right, so we require a mechanism to persist your data. Persisting means what? Storing the data permanently is called as what? Persisting, right? So persisting means what here? Storing the data permanently. Let's suppose if you take a basic example, a bank application kind of thing. So every customer of a bank is going to register with the bank. And then after registering successfully into the bank, then using that data, so the bank database, the bank people can maintain the information related to that particular customer, transactions, lots of transactions, right? If you take a mailing kind of application, if you want to use Gmail kind of application and all, what you do generally, right? So first we register into that particular application software, right? Then once you register into that software, once you register with the DUF software, so the data which is given by you, it should be used for the later time of period, like username or password kind of things. Everywhere, any application you take, so the data which is given by the end user need to be used for the later point of time, right? So that depends on your application. So it's not always that data always should be used for the later usage, right? But most of the applications, whatever we develop, the applications requires the data need to be used for the later point of time, right? So that means if you want to use the data for the later point of time which is generated by your application, it should be stored in a permanent storage, persistence locations, right? So this is persistence. What is the meaning of persistence here? The data that outlives the process. Persistence means what? The data right, the data which is used, right, and the data which outlives the process, whatever the process which is generating the data, and if you want to use the data for the latter point of time, so that means you need to persist it. Yeah, you need to persist it. Without persisting this, without persisting the data, you cannot use the data for the latter point of time, right? So here what is the meaning of this, right? So from the end users will be taking some data, you will be processing, you will be, after processing this data, your process comes up with what, some new data, and if you want to use this data which is generated after processing, if you want to use this data after later point of time, then this data should be permanently saved into some persistence locations, so that you can use this data for the later point of time. If you are unable to store this data into a persistence locations, you cannot use this data, right? Anywhere you can take this. So there should be some kind of mechanism where your data can be stored permanently. Now what is this importance of this JDBC, database connectivity? So before moving on to C, right? So here, now let us start with a simple discussion. Now we keep on discussing about where we discussed entire core Java. We are discussed entirely in core Java like object-oriented programming. Now if you talk about object, what actually a object here? What is the meaning of an object? And technically, if I speak here, a object is nothing but a collection of data only. It's fine. A student object, collection of some data, right? A account object, some collection of data. Like this, in Java also we'll be taking the data, right? So in Java also we'll be taking the data, and a object is nothing but what? The data only. It is a collection of data. Then why why I need to interact with what? Interact with through a Java program. Why I need to interact with what? Database softwares and all, right? So I am taking the data. Object is nothing but a data only. But why should I need to interact with the database softwares, right? So whenever you have the data in the form of object, the first problem is, whenever you have data in the form of object, the first problem is this data is not permanent. It is temporary. What is the meaning of temporary? Once your application closes, once your virtual machine shutdowns, this data will be lost. Whatever the data which is stored into the memories, that is lost. Your objects will be lost once your application is shut down. Then if I want to reuse this data, you cannot reuse because this data is lost here. So it is object is nothing but a data only. Same thing. Object is nothing but a data. But the problem with this is this data is temporary. Are you following me? What I'm trying to explain here? Yes. Right. So everywhere the data is the heart. Now if you want to use the data for the latter point of time, this data should be persisted. So object is not a different thing. Object is also a data, but this is not permanent. It is temporary. Once your application shutdowns, the data in the object will be what? The data in the object will be the data will be lost. Object will be deleted. Right? So still you have some other problems you can face here. If you have object inside object here has a kind of relation and all different relations exist in between Java objects like inheritance relations and has a kind of relations like this. When you have such kind of relations, it is very difficult to maintain the data in the form of what? Objects. Right? So for this, to overcome this, Java provides you a mechanism, right? Java provides you a mechanism called as to store this object permanently. There is a one predefined mechanism is given in Java. That process we call as what? Serialization, right? So instead of maintaining the data in the form of objects, you can write this data into a file, and you can write this data into some permanent location, right? And that permission location can be anything. That process we call as serialization. Right? I think you remember it. So serialization is a process of what? Storing the object state to a permanent medium. It can be any medium. Right? So this is also one mechanism which is provided by the Java to save the data inside a object to a permanent medium. Yes, you can do this. But still it is also very complex operation. Performing a serialization operation is a complex. And it has its own disadvantages. If your data is saved into a permanent medium, so if you want to retrieve this data, you can retrieve this data. A Java program can only retrieve this data. No other programming language can retrieve this data. Serialized data can be understandable by only Java program, not human understandable or not understandable by some other programmings. And it is very complex. Right? So generally you can do this. These are the two techniques we have. These are the two techniques you can go for. These are the two different ways the data is maintained in a Java in the form of object, or you can permanently save this data into by using a mechanism called as serialization by using the serialization mechanism to a permanent medium. But both have their disadvantages. So one, absolutely you cannot use, if the data is there in the form of object, absolutely you cannot use this for the later period of time. No, you cannot use it because it is temporary. Once, if you want to save this data permanently, you can go with serialization, but it is very complex, and the data cannot be read by any other softwares or human, not understandable, right? It is very complex to perform. The time taking, performance, everything is very complex during a serialization process. But okay, fine. Then why these database softwares and all, right? So in general, whenever you talk about, generally we save our data into some kind of text files, right? Word documents or text documents and all, right? In general, most of the times we'll be saving our data, whatever the data you want to save, right? So out of 100 times, you'll be saving your data in the form of what? Files only, most of the times. Then why can't I use files for storing this data permanently? Actually, through the serialization, you can store the data into files only. I'm not talking about serialization. Why these RDBMS softwares are required for me? Why can't I store this data into the files, right? So absolutely you can store the data into the files, but there are lots of disadvantages are there when you store the data into the files, right? Security issues will be there as well. Accessing the data is very complex. Modifications, uh, accessing the data from the files is very complex, right? So whenever you have the relations in, let's suppose if you have a relations in between the data, right? Let's suppose if I take a simple example, a student and a course, right? If I have a multiple students are associated with multiple different courses, how should I maintain this information in a text files? Now I would like to read which student is pursuing which course. I want to get the information of the student, right, as well as the course which he is trying to he is pursuing. How can I get all this information? How should I relate these files? It is very complex, right? So managing the data in the form of what files is very complex. If you have a simple data like information related to one simple, right, object and all, you can maintain it. But whenever your data is related in between, you have relations in between data, so it is very complex to maintain the data in the form of what files. Searching operations and all these operations will be very complex, sorting the things and all. Let's suppose I'm just an example, I'm maintaining a student database in the form of files. I would like to see my student information, right, through by using what I want to order the students according to their marks or according to their rule numbers. I want to search a particular student. I want to search a particular student along with his course details. It's very complex, right? So that is where, because of because of these kind of problems, I'm explaining some few problems only, right? So because of these kind of problems, whatever you face when you try to store the data in the form of what files and all, it is very complex to access these files. They are very complex to access these files. That is where, so these softwares comes into picture. Those softwares we call as database, DBMS, database managements. So there are some software by using which the data can be managed, right? The first thing is the data will be stored permanently, though the file is also going to do the same thing for you. They store the data permanently, but there are lots of drawbacks are there when you try to access the data in the form of files, right? As whatever I described here, few points related to the complexities are accessing the files. So there are some softwares are given to us. Those we call as what? Database management systems, DBMS, where they are going to store the data permanently, persistent mechanism, right? And they will use, for accessing the data, they will use some kind of simple language, right? All database softwares uses a simple language called as what? SQL. Any database software uses a simple language called as SQL for doing some modifications, doing some kind of manipulations on the data. So all database softwares, right, RDBMS softwares, relational database softwares, or database management system softwares are used to store the data permanently, and not only storing the data permanently, right, you can access the data very easily from different right, different tables. Actually these database softwares uses tables to store the data in the form of what? A table is nothing but a combination of rows and columns. A table is nothing but a combination of rows and columns. So these database softwares uses tables to store the data, and if you want to perform any operations on this data, they use a simple language called as SQL, structured query language. There are different database softwares are available for you, right? So what database softwares are available for you here? So the famous, the number one database software, Oracle, is one kind of a RDBMS software, right? You have MySQL. This is also one of the famous RDBMS software, right? Right? And you have MySQL from Sun Microsystems, and you have DB2 from IBM, right? And you have SQL Server. Oracle is from Oracle only, and you have SQL Server is from Microsoft. Like this, every big vendor in the market, right, has their own software, database software. Like this, you have different database softwares, right? These are all what? Softwares. These are all what? Softwares. Database softwares. Right? So what are these database softwares? Every database software works with a language called as what? SQL. All uses the same language, SQL. So different softwares, database softwares are given by different companies. That's it. If you take the example, object-oriented programming languages. What are object-oriented programming languages? You can say what? C++, you can say Java, you can say .NET. All are object-oriented programming languages. What does it mean? So there are some set of specifications are given, and the programming language which follows that specification, that is called as what? Object-oriented programming language. Everywhere in C++, you come across the same object-oriented principles. In the Java, you come across the same object-oriented principles. In .NET, you come across what? The same object-oriented principles. But the way you implement these things means what? Syntaxes. How you write a class in a Java, it will be different from writing a class in C++. It will be different from writing a class in .NET. But all are object-oriented programming languages. In the same way, so there is one SQL, structured query language, a specification, which is implemented by all these softwares, right? So Oracle is one software, database management system software, which is used to store, retrieve whatever the operations you want to perform on data, right? So all these database softwares uses what? SQL, right? So here, this is what you have here. Then my question is very simple. If these database softwares are better in storing the data and all, then why programming languages are required for me? Getting me? What I'm trying to say? So my requirement is what? What is my requirement? Because whatever the data I'm trying to take, I'm trying to process. After processing the data, whatever the results I'm coming with, I would like to store all these results, right? I would like to store all these results permanently. For the latter point of time, I would like to use these things. If I am unable to store this data permanently, then you cannot, it's most of the applications you cannot, will not work. Banking applications or any applications, you require the data to be stored permanently. Then there are some kind of softwares, these are some kind of softwares here, Oracle and all. Then if these softwares are there, by using which if I store, which helps me to store the data permanently, then why require Java kind of programming languages? Right? Why require some kind of programming languages here? And very important thing is, if you want to become a programmer, definitely you need to know at least one of the database software. Because knowing one database software is enough, because as I told you, all database softwares works with the same language, structured query language. Maybe some kind of syntactical differences will be there. Maybe some kind of syntactical differences may be there in between each and these languages, but all use the same language to operate on the data, structured query language. Right? So there are some standard specifications are defined, and all these softwares uses the same specifications. Maybe the internal structure of the data storage will be different from each database to database. How the Oracle stores the data in physical architecture we see generally will be different from how the MySQL stores the data, how the DB2 stores the data, but all uses SQL. If you work with one database software, 90% you can work with other database softwares also. It is also one kind of DBMS from IBM, DB2. Right? Every vendor has their own database software. The big companies in the market, they have their own database softwares. Right? So the question here is, if these database softwares, whatever I'm trying to explain, if they are good at storing the data permanently, then why require Java kind of programming language? Right? So there are two different things here you have. So these softwares, these database softwares are better at storing the data and retrieving the data easily by using SQL language, but they are not good at interacting with what? End users. They are not good at interacting with what? End users, to collect the data from the end users. Then after collecting the data from the end user, so processing the data and all these softwares are not good at that point. These are good at what? Storing the data in permanently and retrieving the data from the database. That permanent locations, they are good, but they are not good at interacting with what? End users. I can say what? UIs. UI means what? User interfaces. A user interface is one which will be helps end user to interact with application software. They are not good at interacting with what? End users, to take the data from what? End user and process the data and all. They are poor at this area. So the programming languages, whatever we are talking about, right? So whatever the programming languages we are talking about, this Java, .NET, or any programming language you take, these are good at what? These programming languages are good at what? Doing these kind of things. Generating user interfaces, creating user interfaces, and taking the data from end users, processing the data. So these programming languages are good at these things. Designing user interfaces, right? And designing user interfaces, graphical or character user interfaces, then take the data from end user very easily. If you take if you take the web applications, HTML is one of that. So which has some kind of very easy, you can develop a user interfaces very easily by using HTMLs and all. In the web, everywhere you will see that. But these database softwares cannot do that. After taking the data, if you want to apply your own business logics and all, processing the data, these programming languages are better at this area. They are poor at, these programming languages are poor at storing the data permanently. But they are good at taking the data, applying some kind of business logics on the data, processing the data, validating lots of things. Taking the data from end user, validating the data, then applying your business logics on the data, right? Coming up with new results and all. These programming languages are very good. But they are poor at storing the data. In the other hand, you have database softwares where these softwares are good at what? Storing the data, doing some kind of easy retrieval, easy updations and all. They are good at these things. But they are poor at processing the data, interacting with the end users to take the data and all. They are poor at these things. So definitely there is a need. Definitely there is a need in the programming, right? So where these programming languages needs to interact with what? These softwares. Then only the application can be developed successfully. It's fine, you can develop the application by using only these softwares, no problem. You can develop the application by using only these softwares also. But you will be missing some kind of features when you use a particular specific language. Whether if you use only this kind of languages, they are not better at these things. And if you develop your language by using this one, they are not better at persisting the things. So definitely there is a need of developing an application by using these both kind of different languages, both kind of different softwares, I can say. Right? So there is a definitely need here. So there is a reason why we will always go with what? Any programming language you can use at this area, and any database software you can use at this area. Whenever you want to develop your application, it's your choice. Whether you want to use a .NET, or whether you want to use a C++, whether you want to use a C kind of programming language, and this Oracle, MySQL, anything. There should be definitely some kind of interaction between these two different softwares, so that the application can be successfully developed. Right? Definitely there is a need. These programming languages need to interact with what? The database softwares. In the same way, these database softwares need to interact with what? Programming languages. Right? So this is the way the importance of this database softwares comes into picture. So generally, whenever you develop the application will be divided into two different layers, I can say what. So people generally, application will be divided into two different major layers. You will have front end So this front end, what is the need of this? What actually this front end contains? This front end is the one which will interact with what? By using which a end user can interact with your application and by passing some data and all. So these softwares are used as a backend systems for storing the data and all, for storing the data permanently, and then later for the use of the for using the data for later point of time, right? So front end and back end. So these are the softwares which we use as a back end softwares, and these are the softwares generally Java kind of programming languages we use for as a front end softwares. And definitely there is a need of interacting both so that application can be completely developed. Right? So this is where the importance of the database softwares comes into picture. Nowadays these are the softwares which are better. Nowadays means what? Whatever we are currently, I can say in the current market, right? So these are the softwares which are better for storing and doing some kind of operations on the data. You cannot expect in the future the same softwares will be doing the same database softwares can be used here. No. I'm talking about today's market, right? So coming to the programming languages, Java and .NET, some kind of programming languages are there which are better to design and all. You cannot say in the future. Now, in the current market, so this is what here you have. And these different softwares need to interact with each other by exchanging the data in between them, so that application can be efficiently created very effectively, right? So this is what a simple requirement why these softwares are required. Now our requirement is what? Now what is my requirement here, right? So what is our requirement? If you talk about our case here, I would like to write a Java program where through my Java program I'm going to design such kind of screens and all, and through that once I take the data from my Java program, once I complete my operations and all, I need to store this data permanently into one of these database management systems, these softwares, any database software it is. That's up to you. So here my need is I'm going to write my front end, right? It's different technologies you can use, right? So Java can be used as a front end, can be used to design the front ends and all. So here I would like to use a Java program. I would like to use a programming language as Java, and through this programming language, whatever the data I take, whatever the data I process, then after this I would like to store the data permanently into these kind of permanent storages softwares. Just I am going to give this data to these softwares, and they are going to store this data permanently. Two different softwares, right? So that is where, so this specific this JDBC comes into picture. This JDBC comes into picture. What actually JDBC is? Is it a software? Is it a new technology? Is given by the Java people? Or is it what actually? What it is exactly? Right? Is it a software? Is it a technology, new technology introduced? Right? Now we try to understand this. What actually this JDBC? Right? So what actually this JDBC, and we try to understand what is this JDBC is, right? So before moving on to JDBC, let us try to go with some kind of still more details about this architecture of these softwares here, right? Now here, is it okay whatever I explained? Why these languages are required for me to develop the applications, right? Now let us go with now if you take any database software, we start with the database softwares here, right? So if you take any database software in the industry, right, every database software vendor provides their own user interface, right? So because these are like in softwares, right? So if you see here, my paint What is this paint here? MS Paint kind of window. This is the interface. As an end user, I am the end user. I am using this interface. This software acts like a what? This is the interface. This paint is the interface, right? Which I am using to draw something here. Simple user interface is given to me. Right, everywhere here, edit place. It is also interface by using which I am going to write my programs. A text editor. So in the same way, let's suppose here, whenever you talk about this database software, every database software vendor gives their own interface. Every database vendor provides us an interface. By using this interface, we can interact with what? These database softwares. And these interfaces can be what? Character user interfaces, or they can be graphical user interfaces. Interface means what? General meaning, interface means what? A bridge between two different things. Operating system, what is operating system in simple if I put? If I take the example, what is the operating system? Same thing, it is acting like interface between the end user and the hardware. Right? It is also acting like a interface between an end user. End user means what? Me. And the hardware. In between that, operating system is using as a interface. Simple, right? A bridge. Anywhere you can apply this definition, right? Now here, every database vendor provides their own interface to interact with these database softwares. Database software is different, and which is the interface which is given by these softwares is different. These interfaces may be graphical user or character user. If you have experience with these things, if I take about, if we talk about Oracle kind of database, general Oracle people gives a SQL plus kind of command line, right? SQL plus kind of what? Software, by using which you can interact with what? That Oracle software, right? So SQL plus is one kind of command line by using which you can interact with this database software. So what is the meaning of this? As a programmer, whatever operations you want to perform on this Oracle database, so you will send the queries, generally we call as queries, through this command line, through this database software. Let's see here, if you take this command prompt, what is this command prompt is going to do for you? What it is doing here? Now what it is, Java C, when I type this is a character user interface, right? I am using this command line as a interface. Now what is this command line is doing for me? What is this command line? Can you explain what is this command prompt is? What actually this command prompt is doing for me? Again, it is an interface where I am going to type my commands. It is passing the instructions. It is not executing actually. It is passing the instructions. When I type Java C, what it is doing here? This instruction is passed to what? An operating system, and the operating system is executing that particular command, and the results will be displayed again onto this user interface. This is character user interface. What is this? This is a character user interface. Yes or no? This is interface which is given to me. Through this interface I am trying to interact with what? Operating system by issuing some commands here. This is character user interface. Everything will be in the form of what? Characters. What is graphical user interface? Everything will be in the form of what? Graphics. Buttons, text fields and all. Here this is graphical user interface. Right? So whatever you see, I can create a folder by like this only. I can create a folder like this by using a command prompt, or I can create a folder, right click new folder, graphical user interface. Nowadays whatever we are using as end users, we feel very comfortable with what? Graphical user interfaces, not with command based. Yeah, they are all graphical only. Start button, everything. This is whatever you see here. Paint. What is paint here? A graphical user interface by using which I can interact with the paint software. This is not the software actually, I can say. This is the interface which is given to me. And whatever I draw here, at the back end some programs are going to execute to save this data as it is. Right? So this is how, that is not our point anyway. Right? So here, so every database vendor provides. Now if you talk about SQL, you can see here, yeah, this is the one which is given by Oracle peoples. This white screen. This white screen is what here? This white screen is Oracle's SQL Plus to interact with what? Oracle software. So this is what, first whenever you try to use Oracle's kind of software, not only Oracle kind of software, any database system if you want to use, first you need to be authenticated by giving a username and password. Then only you can interact with that software. So what is this? Here this is a command line. It is not a software. Now whatever the command I have typed here, this is passed to the database software and it is executed. And this client, right, this is nothing but this interface as well as this server software, both are given by the same company. They know how to, because these two are implemented by the same people. So this software, this interface knows how to interact with this server software. Generally we call them as, technically we call them as what? These are what? Servers, and these are client. This SQL Plus is a client. SQL Plus is a client and Oracle is the server software. Like this MySQL people may give you such kind of one more different software for you. Right? MySQL client and MySQL server. SQL server client and SQL server server software. Client and SQL server. Right? Because here these client and servers both are created by the same vendors, same company people, right? They know how to interact. Now whatever the commands I am issuing through this SQL Plus, whatever the commands I am issuing through this SQL Plus, white screen one, these commands will be passed to what software? These commands will be passed to what software? Here, whatever the commands I am issuing through this SQL Plus, this is because this client is given by the Oracle, this instructions will be passed to what? Oracle software. But if I pass the instructions through this black screen, where the commands will be passed? Are going to pass it to Oracle? This is operating system command line, Windows operating system. In simple, this is a client, I can say. This command prompt I can say as a client. Right? Now each and every software will give you their own clients to interact with these softwares. That is fine. But what is my requirement here? What is my requirement here? So you can use these command lines, these clients, absolutely you can use these clients to interact with these softwares. But these clients are not that much rich. How? See this. They are not good at taking the inputs and all from the user. Right? Now if you want to use these clients, you need to know that language. Otherwise you cannot give the inputs to that software. Right? Now what is my requirement now? Right? Now my requirement is different here. I would like to have my program here. What is my program? I would like to develop a Java application here. I would like to develop a Java application here, and through this application I want to interact with that softwares, servers. So it is same story here. The requirement is same, but the difference is what? Requirement is same here. The requirement is what? Interacting with these softwares. Right? So if you want to interact with the softwares, you can use the clients which are given by those software people, but it is not my requirement. My requirement is I would like to write my Java application through which I would like to interact with what? These softwares. Now what is the meaning of this now? My program acts like a client. My program acts like a client to these softwares. It's fine. Getting me? Are you following me what I'm trying to explain here? I would like to write a Java program, so I'm going to take the data here, and whatever the data I have in this application, just I would like to pass this application to these softwares for permanent storage. That is my requirement. So my program becomes what? A client. In the place of this client, instead of using this client, I'm going to use my Java program as a client, where I'm going to collect the data, into this Java application, and whatever the data I have collected after processing your data, I would like to store this data permanently. This cannot be done with Java, so that I want to pass this data to what? These softwares, so that my data can be saved permanently. Are you getting me here? Okay, right? Now let's see here. Now this is not that much simple doing this task. How I am explaining whatever I explained, it looks very simple, but that is not that much simple to do this task. Why it is not simple? Why it is not simple? What is the meaning of that? Doing this is not simple. Why it is not simple? Can you say? What kind of problems we will face? Because the thing is, previous client, if you take the previous example, the previous client, whatever I have taken here, SQL Place kind of client, these client software as well as what the server software, both are implemented by the same people. So the same people might have written the code. They know how to interact with each other. And MySQL, the database server, will have its own client. SQL server will have its own client. Like how you have this command prompt which passes the instructions to operating system, how we have this prompt, this SQL press editor, command line, which passes the instructions to Oracle software. That is fine, because both are implemented by the same people. But here this is different. The Java software is given by, this software is given by different people, and these softwares are given by different people. Now there are few challenges here. What are the few challenges? Right, because it is something like, right, now let's suppose, now my question is it is the same question I think I have asked previously, right? Now my question is it possible for you to communicate with anybody? Is it possible for you to communicate with anybody? Let's suppose you are meeting a person for the first time. Is it possible for you to interact with him directly? Can you communicate with him? No. There is a 50-50 chances there. It is possible or it is not possible. Why no? Why not no here? Unknown. Okay, fine. If you want to talk to him, then if he is also unknown, if you want to talk to him, then right. If you make an effort also here, you may not be communicating, because there should be some kind of what. So if you don't know, let's suppose the other person knows Hindi, but if I don't know Hindi, so how can I communicate with him? Right? So both the two different parties trying to interact with each other, so there should be some kind of what? Common interface through which they both can communicate with each other. Now if you take the example of our case also, you did not see me and I did not see you, then how we are able to communicate with each other? Still we are able to do every day, where we will be interacting with each other. Right? That is one software, it's fine. Absolutely correct. Before the software, whatever you have given, we have some standard set of agreements. Common language, right? Right. Right, absolutely. A common language is required where both can understand. Before common language, actually, as a client, you have your requirement, right? So you are the client. I am the service provider. I'm here as a service provider. I'm at this layer, and you are at this layer, right or not? So as a client, first of all, you have, as a client, it's your responsibility to identify a particular service provider. Yes or no? This is a very common thing. As a client, it is your responsibility to identify a particular service provider. Because I am, as a service provider, I am keep on providing the same services to what different users. Yes or no? This Java class I am not only giving to you. I am giving this. I'm giving these classes to what different people. The people who requires my services, they try to interact with me. That is the first point. Yes, there are millions of people. Everybody are not interacting. Everybody are not interested to listen my classes because they don't require these services. And you are the client and I'm the service provider. So you identified as, because there is a requirement for you to learn a particular software, then you identified the service provider who is providing such kind of services. And then directly you have directly then I started giving you the services. Directly I started giving you the services. No, right? There are some common set of agreement is there in between us. Right? So what is that common set of agreements? So I have my own curriculum, fee details, timings and all, how I am going to do this. Everything is shared, then you are accepted that agreements, right? So what I am going, as a service provider, what I am going to provide, how I am going to provide, how many hours a day session I am going to take, how many sessions I am going to take, what topics I am going to cover, everything I have given to you, how much fee I am going to trying to collect, and you are fine with this, then you have joined. You are now receiving my services, right? It's fine here, whatever I'm talking about. So okay, here this is what a client and that is a server in general, just right, a simple definition I have given. Now here that is fine, but here now let's suppose, because if you see here, different service providers are there here with different what, if you take these three different softwares you have, these are the three different service providers will have what, different set of what, rules. If I put in simple, let's suppose now, because it is my requirement, because it is the requirement of a client application, client to interact with what, the server. Now let me put in very simple here. Now I would like to access his services. There should be some common kind of what, there should be some common kind of specification which both parties should be followed, agreement kind of thing where the both parties should be followed. Generally we say protocol kind of thing in simple, right? So let's suppose my requirement is like this. I would like to write a Java application through which I want to use Oracle database software, so for my persistent storage, right? Now there is some common set of agreements are given by these people who service provider has given what, this is the service provider who has given some kind of guidelines, in simple some kind of guidelines, how can a Java programmer can interact with the database software, to Oracle database software, right? So these people has given, this Oracle people has given some kind of guidelines here. So I have written my program based on this guidelines, and my program is very fine interacting with what, this software, right? Now in the future I don't want to use this software, I don't want to use this software, I would like to go with this software. So what should I do here then? What should I do here then? So I have written my application very fine, and because by following some set of guidelines given by these people, and according to that guidelines I have written my application, it's working very fine, it's fine now. Now in this case I would like to interact with this database software. What should I do as a programmer? Again I need to rewrite my application by following these set of rules. In the future like this. Is it correct thing? Okay, if you have only one software here at this end, if you have only one software here at this end, this is fine. Both can come to a common agreement so that the data can be exchanged. But it is not the case like this. At the bottom layer, you have n number of database softwares, and that is up to you. That is up to the Java programmer or somebody wants to use this one. Let's suppose it is very common thing in the industry actually. The clients may change their database softwares or something very regularly because there are some commercial projects are there, there are some open source projects are there. Now I have written my application entirely with this. Now in the future I don't like this as a programmer. Now I want to interact with this. So what should I do with my application? How should I develop my application? Do I need to rechange entirely? I need to, as a programmer, again I need to rewrite my application from the scratch to interact with this software. Is it correct thing? Previous case was different. If you have only one, this side one, only this side one, then it works because only two softwares are there, but it is different. At the bottom layer, I don't have only one software. I have multiple softwares in my bottom layer, in this servers. And what should I do here? Right, so there is a solution for this. What is the solution? I'm going to give a solution right here, and this solution is not given by the Java people. For the this solution, there is a first important point here. This solution is not given by the Java people. The solution is given by these database vendors only, because as I told you before starting this class, we have seen what what is the need of applications, what is the need of what these databases, and this solution is given by these database people only, and that solution generally we call as, this is called as, is again one more technical word here which is already there in the industry. This is called as ODBC. What is this ODBC? Open database connectivity. What is the meaning of this? So what these database people did here is they have come together, all these database people have come together, so they have given one common interface. Instead of a programmer interacting with a database with different interfaces, so all these database vendors are provided one common interface. That common interface is called as what? ODBC. What is this common interface is called as? ODBC. Right? So what is this? ODBC means what? Open database connectivity, not given by any programming language. So this common interface can be used by any programming language. C++, .NET, any programming language can be used, can use this common interface to interact with what? These underlying databases. So what, as a programmer now, now what you can do here? Instead of writing different what in previous case I can say what different guidelines or specifications you have to interact with what different database softwares, but there is one common API, a common layer, a middle layer, I can say, a common middle layer which is given to interact with what? All database softwares. So as a programmer, instead of interacting with each and every database directly, so you can interact with this layer, and this layer helps you to interact with what? Any one of these database. Right? So this layer helps you to interact with what? Any one of these database. Right? So that is called as ODBC, Open Database Connectivity, which is given by these database vendors only. IBM people are there, Microsoft people are there, Oracle people are there. All these people came together and they have given one single interface, by using which a programmer can interact with what? Any underlying software here. This middle layer is going to help you. It's a customizing kind of thing. Example, what example I can take here? What example you can take here? a bridge kind of thing I can say in between two different things here. And but here this underlying you have what multiple softwares, right? Just I can say what if you want to interact with Oracle software, just your application need to register here. You need to register with what? Oracle database. Your application need to pass some information through this application. I want to pass, so I should pass what? Some instructions to this layer, so that I can say what? I would like to interact with Oracle database. So this layer takes your application and helps you to communicate with the software. If you pass some information to this layer, now I would like to interact with what? MySQL. So this layer is going to help you to what? Interact with what? This layer. A mediator kind of thing, where when you pass this information to this layer, by taking that information, it is going to help you to interact with what? This one. So a bridge between the database softwares and the application programs. It can be any program, right? So it is not storing, it is a bridge between this. Now as a programmer, I am giving some information. Now boss, I would like to interact with Oracle database software. So then there should be some configuration will be done here. Through this configuration, it is helps you to interact with what? Oracle. What is that example I can take here? Right? If you take a, like, let's suppose we take our example only, right? So here you are the client, right? So I am the service provider here. In between this you and me, there is one, what is that? CClass.in. My company is there. Now if you ask them, I would like to learn .NET, so what they are going to do here? They will be guiding you to what? .NET paper trainer. If you ask them, I would like to learn Java, they will be guiding you to what? Java. If you ask you some other technology, they will be guiding you to what? Some other technology. So a single interface, API, which helps you to what? Your application can interact with what? Multiple databases with small minor modifications. We'll see what is that and how to do it by writing a program. But this interface is very famous actually, but it has some drawbacks here. What drawbacks this kind of interface? As a Java programmer, when you use such kind of interface, what drawbacks you will face here? That is very important to understand. Right? So as I told you here, this interface is developed by these database vendors, and this interface is completely developed by in the programming language like C and C kind of programming languages. So what happens if you write a Java program through which you pass the instructions to this layer, and this layer passes the instructions to us, this database. This two-way communication actually. So but now what happens here? Your application will depend on what? Because C and C++ are what? Platform independent. So that means what? Your application data is also depends on what? A particular platform. The Java programs becomes what? Platform dependent if you use ODBC. Still you can use it, absolutely you can use it, right? Still this version Java 7 also it is supported, but in the future versions they are trying to remove this kind of uh, connectivity. Still you can do this. You can take the help of this layer. I can say simple software, a simple software which is there in between your application and the underlying database software, which transfers your Java data to database and that database data to what? Your Java application. But this layer is designed in these languages, so if you try to use this layer within your program depends on what? Your program also becomes platform dependent. And the biggest drawback here is this middle ODBC comes with only Microsoft products, Microsoft operating systems only. This will not come with any other operating system, because Microsoft people also there inside this implementing this middle layer. So this will be shifted only with Microsoft softwares. It's a big problem. If you are working with Linux kind of environment, it will not work. You cannot take the help of this layer. Right? If you want to see, because we will be using the same Microsoft operating system, so you can see here simple software. I can say now go to control panel, right? Just I'm showing you here. Go to control panel. Where is it? No, it's not programs. System and security. Yeah. The control panel, this is my operating system is new one, like 7. So you will find this one, administrative tools. The control panel somewhere you can find directly administrative tools, that depends on your operating system. Administrative tools. Now go here. There you can find one, data source. Data sources. All data sources are configured. ODBC. Right? Can you see this? Open this. Now see here. Here. Now I can see this one. Drivers. There is some kind of drivers here. So there are lots of databases are configured in this. SQL Server, Oracle, Fox Pro, right? Oracle database is available here. So if you want to use this, just you need to configure something here. By using a Java program, you need to pass this information to this layer. How? This is going to take care about what? Oracle. Oracle, SQL Server, again Microsoft. When you install the database softwares, you can see something here. Right? Lots of database it supports. ODBC. And this comes with only Microsoft. That is the biggest drawback you have. And if I go with like this, now I'm putting like this. A new database is introduced to the market. A very new database is introduced to the market, and which has got more features than already existing databases. And this database will not work with this ODBC. If this database will not work with this ODBC, then how a Java application can interact with this new database? Getting me? So I am taking the help of this middle layer to interact with this database, is fine. But a new database is coming to into the market, and which has better features than these things, these softwares. But this database software will not work with what? ODBC. Then how my Java software will interact with this one? Right, so this is still allowed. This is also one problem we have, but this is still allowed. Writing a Java application by using this interface ODBC, right, to connect to different databases. It is fine. In my machine, only 2 softwares are installed. 2 database softwares, I think SQL Server and Oracle. That is the reason it is showing you only 2. Right. Now what about this one? Now, how can you see whatever the problems I'm raising here? What are the problems here? It should not be platform dependent. Again, it should not be operating system dependent. And your application still need to work with what? The new database softwares also. So what kind of solution I can have so that my application works with all underlying databases with less efforts? There are some few problems I'm showing you. So my need is what? I want to work with all database softwares as a programmer, because I cannot guarantee which database software I will use. But my Java application should work with all database softwares. Now can you tell the solution for this? The name of that solution is JDBC, database connectivity. But what kind of solution can be given so that this problem can be solved? JDBC, ODBC is nothing but this one. Using a ODBC is nothing but JDBC, ODBC bridge, we say. Did you understand my question, what I'm trying to explain? Program is very simple. Writing a JDBC program is very simple. A college kid can also can do this. Nothing is there in writing a JDBC program. Very simple. 100% I can assure that. Right? Understanding this architecture is very important. That is where you come across one more solution that is called as JDBC. What is that solution? And how Java people has a solution for this? Now that is where the key point in this. What Java people has did, as I told you, is it a software JDBC? No. What Java people has did here is they have released some guidelines, specification we say. Specification. What is JDBC? Yeah, it is a specification. JDBC is a specification released by Java Sun Microsystems. What is the meaning of specification? Right? Now, they have released some kind of specifications, right? And they asked every database vendor who are interested to who want to use the Java application as a front end, they asked them to implement this specification, right? So JDBC is not a software, it is not a technology, it is a specification, I can say. JDBC is a specification. What does it mean here? They have not released anything here. They have just given some kind of rules, guidelines, I can say, simple specification rules. And that means what? I can say what? Now, as if you want, now let me put like this. Now, if you are a database vendor and if you want to use the Java application, if you are a database vendor, if you want to use the Java application, rule 1, you need to do this. Rule 2, you need to do this. Rule 3, you need to do this. Then whatever the database vendor who wants to use the Java application, they will follow their rules. They will follow all these rules, right? And by following these things, they will give an interface, and through that interface we can interact with that particular database software, right? I know. What is this? It is a specification. What is this? Java people has not given any implementation here. They have given some simple set of rules. What I said? So this is the rule 1, rule 2, rule 3. If you are a database vendor, if you want to interact with my Java, if you want to use my Java applications, just design an interface. What is the meaning of this? Design an interface by using those rules. Just design an interface by using those rules. Like this. Design an interface by using these rules. Whatever the rules I am giving, just it is your responsibility to design an interface by using some set of rules I am giving. Now you design this interface, and a Java programmer can use the interface which is designed by you, and by using this interface, any Java programmer can interact with what? Your database software. So what is JDBC here? This is a specification, and this specification will be implemented by whom here? The database vendors. The database vendors implement this specification, and their implementations, as a Java programmer we use their implementations here. As a Java programmer we use their implementations to interact with that particular software, and all implementations will be implemented based on the same specification rules. All implementations will be implemented based on the same specification rules. And technically we call these implementations, somebody told, right? So these implementations which are implemented by the database vendors, we call them as what? We call them as drivers. We call them as what? Drivers. JDBC drivers. Did you understand what is the meaning of this? So what I explained, did you understand this? So JDBC is not a software kind of thing here like ODBC. It is some kind of specification released by Java people, and they asked, right, so they asked the database vendors, right, what these Java people has did, they asked the database vendors, if if you want to use a Java kind of software as a front end, now just you need to design, you need to implement a interface. Definitely there is a interface is required. You need to implement a interface, and that interface should be implemented by using these rules. Right? Did you get what I'm trying to explain here? Right? So as a Java programmer, you need to use this interface. What are these here? These are interfaces. Yes, every database vendor will have their own drivers. Absolutely. Every database vendor will have their own implementation for what? This JDBC specification. If you want to, as a Java programmer, if you want to interact with Oracle database, what you need to do here? You need to use this interface which is developed by what? Oracle people. If you want to interact with MySQL, you need to use this interface which is developed by MySQL people. And what is this? All these interfaces, all this middle layer, this interface, nothing but we are talking about drivers. All these drivers are implemented based on the same specification rules, and those specification rules are called as what? JDBC. As a Java programmer, if you want to interact with Oracle, just you need to use this bridge which is implemented by Oracle people, Oracle driver. If you want to interact with MySQL, you need to use the driver which is implemented by MySQL people. You cannot guarantee that if the database vendor does not give you this driver, that means what? Your application cannot interact with the database. But almost all top database vendors definitely will give this driver. Microsoft people have their own driver, MySQL will have its own driver, Oracle will have its own driver, DB2 people have its own driver. Right? So this is what here. So now, so first thing is whatever the drawbacks we addressed, your application will not be depends on a particular what environment, because Java people has not given anything here, a software kind of thing. And these drivers generally will be implemented by using Java kind of software. It's not always they should use the Java software only, but most of the times they will use the Java software to implement these drivers. If this driver is implemented by Java software, then your Java application will not depend on any other softwares, will not become a platform independent. And as you know that these drivers can work on any database, any operating system, not depends on what, only Microsoft kind of thing. And if a new database comes into the picture, right? If they have given the third most important, new database comes into the picture in the market. Now I would like to use this database. So what modification I need to use? What modification should be done in my application? Nothing. Just use the driver which is given by this people. That's it. Change this middle layer. Yes. Change the driver. That helps you to interact with the database software. Slight modifications, one or two modifications are required here that we see, but most cases no need to change any code in your application. Just change this driver, remove this middle layer, and just add the middle layer which helps you to interact with that new database software. Just use it. It helps you to interact with the software. And the most important thing is all these implementations will be implemented based on the same guideline, same specification, right? So to make still more clear, let us take one simple example. Let us quickly go through that simple example. We put this concept aside. Now let me put in a different way, very regular, regular one here. Now my question is like this. We take what electronic device? Okay, we'll take one simple electronic device here. Don't much think about the electronic devices. Already we have come across such kind of discussion previously also. I told you this kind of example previously. Now my question is very simple, right? Now everybody might have experienced this, right? Now the question is like this: if you know how to drive a bike, right? If you know how to drive a bike, is it possible for you to drive other bikes which you never seen before or which you never drive before? Is it possible for you to drive that vehicles? Let's suppose you lent a example we take, you lent a pulsar bike. You lent a pulsar bike. You know how to drive a pulsar bike. Now today in the market, today itself, one new bike is released in the market. You just lent that driving that bike up before 2 years or 3 years. Today in the market, a very new bike is launched, right? Now my question is, are you able to drive that bike or not? If I know the gear system, then you can. Somebody says confidently yes. Then how it is possible? That is my question. So almost all I am getting the answers like yes. But my question is, how it is possible? A bike newly released in the market. How are you able to drive this? Yes. What is the meaning of bike? Can you say? Can you say what is the meaning of bike? Now it is very much similar to this architecture, whatever I have done here. We put that in the same fashion here, you can see here. Right? Let's suppose as I'm talking about the bikes like Indian bikes, right? Pulsar. Right? First of all, we come to this diagram later. Somebody said because it is a bike. What actually a bike mean? There may be some scientist, there may be some kind of scientist who might have defined what is a bike mean. Some scientist kind of thing. Some group of people or single person, some group of people, right, might be given a definition for what is a bike. Two-wheeler or bike. What is it? Bike. Definition. So which has two wheels, which will have some gear system, which will have some this, that, and all that is called as a bike. These are rules. It is simple like JDBC. Now you talk about this layer. What is this layer? What is this layer here? This is the bike implementers. Implementers means some companies. You have some company like this is a one company. You have this is one more company. You have, right, Hero. What they do? What these company people will do? Any other companies? I don't know much. Honda. Okay, we'll take it. What these company people will do? They will generally, yeah, lots of. They will generally, what these people will do here? This is a company people, some other group of people. There is some group of people, who has given this specification, not implementation, right? It's only specification. What is the meaning of a bike? That's it. Some group of people. Again, this is what? Some other group of people you have here. And what this group of people will do here? So what this group of people will do here? Different group of people. They will implement this specification. Means what? They will implement this specification by giving their bikes. So here, this is the bike here. Pulsar or something, whatever you talk about, this is a bike. Implemented by whom? These company people. Right? Different company people will have what? Are giving you different bikes, yes or no? But all bikes will be implemented based on same specification. Getting me? What I'm trying to explain. Did you understand this architecture? This is a one group of people who defined what is a bike mean. Nothing inside it. It is a simple abstract. What is a bike? That's it. And these are the different group of people who are taking this specification and implementing bikes here, the physical existing things, right? But here every bike will have what? Every bike implementer will have what? Every company people, this group of people will implement the same specification. Same specification will be implemented, but in different ways. What does it mean? Same specification will be implemented in different ways. What does it mean here? What is the meaning of this? Same specification will be implemented in a different ways, right? That is how we have. You have different bikes with different mileages, different systems. Lots of things will be added, but all bikes will be having this common things. Apart from that, that vendor's implementation, he can add some other things to it, specific things, but every bike will have this, right? This is what you have here, right or not? Now, is it this architecture is completed? Is this architecture is completed here? No, there is one more group of people, very intelligent people here. Who are they? Who are these people? There is one more group of people are there here. These are some kind of scientists. These are some kind of implementers of this specification. And there is one more group, very intelligent group. Who are these people? Can you say now? Users. We, absolutely, we are always intelligent, right? We are the users. We are the users here. And all these different people are connected together with some kind of guidelines. Now that is what actually, when I asked you bike, there is no, you know what is the meaning of bike? It will contain two wheels, it will have some gears and all, that is you know. And you know that every company will be implementing these things. This will be there. Each and every bike will have what? Gears, two wheels, accelerator, brake system and all. But different ways they will implement it. So first thing is, if you want to ride a bike as a user here, some other group of people, as a user, first of all, if you want to ride a bike, first you should know what is the meaning of a bike. That means what's the specification. Then you can, if you know how to use one bike, if you know how to ride one bike, that is the answer for this. You can also ride other bikes also in the market. How? How it is possible? First you need to know the specification, what is the meaning of a bike. Then you need to learn, you need to know how to use one bike. Yes, the first bike. Now if you know how to use a first bike, then automatically you can use the other bikes in the market, which you never experienced before also. How it is possible? How it is possible? That is what my question was actually. Now if you know what is a bike and you know how to drive a pulsar bike, is it possible to drive some other bike here? What is that? Splendor kind of bike? Yes, that's absolutely fine, because you know what is the meaning of bike. And though these are different implementations given by different people, you can easily use them. Simply changing this layer, this and this different implementations are implemented based on the same specification rules. That is the reason why you can use it. All are different, absolutely fine. All are different. I am not saying all are same. All are different, but implemented based on the same specification. That is the reason why you can use them. Right? Getting me? What I am trying to explain here. All are different bikes implemented by different people, but all are implemented based on the same rules. That is the reason why, same specification, that is the reason why if you know how to drive one bike, you are able to drive all the bikes in the market. The same example I have given while discussing interfaces. Question paper kind of thing. Some group of people will design a question paper, some group of people will implement it. Their implementations we call as what? Answer sheets. And some other group of people, examiner, who are they? Evaluators. They can evaluate any one of the any answer sheet here, because of they know what they implemented. They don't know how they implemented, but they everybody know what they implemented. We don't bother about how they are implemented. Do I bother how this pulsar bike is implemented, how this is implemented? As a user, I don't bother it. I just bother about what is the meaning of bike, and I should know how to use it. That's it. In the same way here, the same architecture you have here. So this JDBC specification, what is this I am talking about? This JDBC specification, which is implemented by Sun Microsystems, contains nothing. And these database vendors are implementers, and their implementations we call as what? Their implementations we call as drivers. Now the third party, who is missing in this? So you have these people, you have this group of people, and who is missing? The programmer. Means me, we, not me. We are the programmers. Now what we need to know, if I want to do a programming, if I want to do a programming, what should I do here? I need to know what is this specification mean. What is the meaning of JDBC specification? That's it. I need to know how to use this driver. If I know the JDBC specification, that means what? What is the meaning of a bike? Then how to drive it? If I know it, then I can use any one of the bikes. I can drive any one of the bikes. In the same way, if I know what is the meaning of JDBC specification, what it contains actually, as you said, bike contains 2 wheels, this and that and all. So first of all, you need to know what is the JDBC specification, and if you know this JDBC specification, you can use any one of its implementation. You can use this driver, which is implemented by Oracle people, which helps you to interact with this database. If you use this implementation, which is implemented by MySQL people, you can interact with what? MySQL database. If you use this, which is implemented by SQL Server, you can interact with what? This database software. Right? So now my question is, what this specification can be? How this specification will be given to the market? How this specification will be released to the market? Can you say? Right? The specification contains only some kind of guidelines, and this is where the importance of what? A core Java concept called as what? Interface. Generally this specification will be released, right? The specifications will be released as a interfaces, because interface is the only one which should be implemented by. Interface is nothing but what? Technical word. This is Java interface. Means what? Can have multiple implementation. That is where we will come across these interfaces. So whenever you want to design such kind of specification rules, that is where these interfaces are used. So we'll try to understand this. What is this JDBC specification? First thing, as a programmer, you need to understand what is this JDBC specification and these drivers. In simple, if I put a driver, what is the meaning of a driver here? In this complete example, what is the meaning of a driver here? How can you explain this? A driver is a bridge between the Java application and the database software. That's it. A simple driver. You might have seen motherboard drivers. What they are doing here? Motherboard drivers. After installing the operating system, we install motherboard drivers. What does it mean? What they do? LAN drivers. What they do? A simple interface between these drivers are interface. You will have audio drivers. What they do? Software. A driver. A simple software, which, because a motherboard is nothing but a CPU is nothing but a what? Combination of different hardwares, and they need to interact with each other. So this audio drivers helps what? A motherboard to interact with what? That interface, audio, speaker or something. A driver which takes what? Which helps you to reach to the destination. A simple bus driver and all. Right, which is actually like a bridge between your Java application and the database softwares. Now this is the solution you have. That is the meaning of JDBC. Did you understand what I explained here? I just shown you high level architecture of JDBC. We did not see any programming here. So if you understand this architecture, now this is what a JDBC. Now writing a program is left. That's it. Now if you want to write a program, what you need to do here? First of all, we need to understand what is the JDBC specification. And I am not bothered about the implementations, and I am not bothered about the implementation. In the same way, I don't bother about which bike I am driving. I bother about what is the meaning of a bike. As a programmer, I need to know what is JDBC specification, that's it. And the same specification is implemented by different database vendors. Now if you use the implementation of Oracle people, your application interact with what? Oracle. And these implementations we call as what? Drivers. Right? Okay, did you understand? So this is what we are going to do. As a programmer, nothing is there. That means what? Write your program, there will be some standard steps will be there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Write your standard 5 steps. Use this Oracle driver, interact with Oracle software. Use this MySQL driver, interact with MySQL. Use this DB2 driver, interact with DB2. The steps will be same. Change this middle layer, interact with that particular database software. That's it. Very simple. Getting me? Nothing you need to do as a programmer. Write your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There is a standard steps are given. Write those standard steps. Right? If you take the help of this driver, your program interacts with the Oracle. If you take the help of this driver, your program interacts with MySQL. That is the only thing. No, nothing here. Nothing complex. Right? So that is what here